Tēnā koutou katoa no mai haere mai. Today, Joe and I are chatting about some of the things that have come up in our mobilise sessions. So when we're talking about allyship, inclusive leadership, when we've got rooms full of leaders and rooms full of men, some of the common conversations, and I think some of the conversations that often have been difficult to have or potentially have been challenging in this space. And so I thought it'd be useful for us to share what's coming up, how the conversations are going, and hopefully some strategies here to help your corridor in your organizations in this space as well. Got it, Joe.
Kia ora, Jess. Great to be with you. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday to you too. Hey, look, I reckon one of the things that has been most interesting for me and how it's landing and has been interesting that I think we should start with is this conversation around merit. And I reckon I'm slightly attached to this because of my HR background, right? And
Yeah.
my days in recruitment. And it's interesting because I started in HR 20 something years ago now. And back then it was very much about academic qualifications and what's on your CV. So where have you worked? What jobs have you had? And what letters do you have after your name or certificates to your name? And that was very much merit. And we would shortlist based on that. And then we progressed to, well, I don't know whether you'd call it progress, but we got to a point where it was more culture fit. So how do we kind of, get people that look and sound the same as everybody else so that we all fit in and we can all work together well? And of course, now we've evolved again since that, thankfully. And so I feel like because merit looks so different now, and one of the common concerns is that, well, that we hear is that, well, shouldn't we be recruiting for merit? Shouldn't we just pick the best person for the job? And unfortunately, when we think about merit and the best person for the job, our go-to and our bias is around what qualifications do they have, what school did they go to, and what jobs have they had? And of course, we look for the stuff that's similar to what we have because that's what we value. And yet merit's changed. And I think, the way you describe it in the new equation for merit is a really good way of seeing how that's changed and helps people understand that merit is so much more than just our skills and our experience.
Yeah. Awesome, Jess. Yeah, because it does. It comes up all the time. This is such a big conversation in Corridor about merit. And in our workshops that we're running, it comes up usually quite early on in the Corridor around shouldn't we just be hiring the right person for the job, the person with the most relevant skills and experience for that job. And so, this kind of backlash against diversity and inclusion is obviously often framed around this merit conversation. And so, to your point, like there's the saying, merit is in the eye of the beholder. So we have a perspective on what merit is based on our own lived experience, based on our own identity, and based on our own bias. Often it's around affinity bias. So, we like to be around people that are like us, naturally, and actually kind of acknowledging that we have that bias is really, really important. And confirmation bias as well. We like people that like our ideas, that laugh at our jokes, all of those sorts of things. And so, we're talking about now a new merit equation that identifies and acknowledges and values difference from culture fit, which I think is one of the worst concepts that I can ever think of, and has had such a detrimental impact on the diversity and inclusion movement. Because it actually reinforces this kind of affinity bias, getting people in which are going to fit in here, and it'll be really nice. Whereas actually recruiting for difference is this new equation. So we used to think about merit like skills in an equation, skills plus experience plus culture fit equals merit, right? And so we'd say, well, what exact relevant experience do they have? What education background do they have? Will they fit in here? If you tick all of those boxes, then you're going to be a preferred candidate or the hire for that job. Now we're thinking about still skills plus experience, right? So we're not taking that out of it. You need to have relevant skills and experience to do the job. And often that is a part of the conversation in terms of when we're talking about merit. It's, oh, you're advocating for someone which is completely random coming into a role who don't have, like, we're not asking someone with no engineering background to build a bridge. Right, so let's take that out of the equation. But this new equation is still skills plus relevant experience, plus future potential, plus difference. plus culture add, not culture fit. And so we're thinking more broadly about the capability set of that candidate. So still skills and experience, but what future potential might they have coming into this role? What different perspective might they bring to the leadership team or to that team that we don't already have? And then weighting that against those with a how might they bring culture add into that leadership, into that thinking, so that we're breaking down group think, so that we're driving greater innovation, greater productivity, greater well-being within the organization. And so it's not hiring for diversity. It's actually a commercial decision to say we are hiring the best candidate into that role. It's just that we're valuing different aspects of that capability in terms of that recruitment decision. So often the detractor argument in this is you are just hiring that woman because she's a woman, or you're hiring that person because of their ethnicity or cultural background, because you have a target in your organization around that, and that I'm missing out, and it's purely based on gender identity, or it's purely based on culture and ethnicity. Whereas we're saying, well, actually, this is a commercial decision. It's based on skills, experience, future potential in that role, the difference that they will bring in terms of perspective, lived experience, cultural perspective into that, and then what will they add, not what will they fit with it, which I
Yeah.
think is a really important point.
Oh, it so is. That culture add as opposed to culture fit is where the rubber hits the road here. And I think that merit myth has been that, like you say, we're hiring for diversity is the fear, yet we're actually hiring the best person for the role. What we need to understand is the best person for the role is well beyond the skills and experience they bring. Yes, they'll have to bring a certain amount of skills and experience. We're not hiring someone that's not capable for the job. We're hiring someone that's more capable to future-proof the job because of the difference that they bring. And I think that's the interesting commercial prospect here, that hire brings something so much more than their skills and experience that other people, perhaps with more skills and experience, can't bring. And it's redefining what capability looks like in this space that I think is so important, because the merit equation has changed, as you say. And so when we're hiring for capability now, we have to think so much more broadly than skills and experience. And that's a commercial decision that we make. And I think helping us understand what merit looks like in this new world, and taking us away from that very fixed view of, well, this is where they went to school, this is where their degree is from, and they've had this job at this company, so they'll be great. And it's that affinity bias, because I think they'll be great because it's a lot like my background, right?
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so important.
And I think the environment that we're operating within, in terms of the really fast-paced kind of delivery within our organizations, is actually a barrier to this as well. Because what you often hear is this term around, we just need to get a safe pair of hands into that role. We need someone. I don't have time to wrap around the support that might be required for someone who doesn't have direct experience into that role. I need someone who can hit the ground running in a safe pair of hands. Is often because we've got this, we need to deliver this piece of work or a project within the next 3 months, and so we're under pressure to deliver that. And I think in a post-COVID working environment, or a tail end of the pandemic environment that we're in, this is more emphasized. And so we need to be able to take a breath within that to say, what are we willing to do in terms of this, to the support, the wraparound support to hire the best person for the job, not the person with the most fit for the job. And so, yeah, I think because it raises this point that inclusive leadership and actually leading diverse teams is harder than leading a homogenous team. If you want a lovely life, hire a homogenous team, because they will love all of your good ideas. They'll laugh at all of your good jokes. You'll actually be able to deliver that project probably in a more seamless manner, more quickly, because you'll have group think. There won't be any discussion or challenge within the leadership dynamic that you have. And so you won't have to keep on going back to square one around redesigning that strategy or whatever. So you'll be able to deliver it quickly. It'll just be that what you produce is the same as what you've probably always produced, even though the dynamics of your stakeholder and your customer base are really changing. And so you can't afford to be delivering what you've delivered all of the time. You need to be having, obviously, a transformational approach around what you're delivering to your customers and stakeholders, and how you're developing your culture internally. I mean, the 2023 census data in New Zealand just came out this week, and it just shows this growing diversity of our country. That the Maori population are up to almost 20% of our population, and 1/3 of under 25s are Maori, and we've got this really young Maori and Pacifica population emerging, coming into our workspaces, having more of an influence on purchasing decisions and stakeholder decisions in our community. And so, all of this data around the demographic changes that we're seeing is really emphasizing this importance of inclusive leadership and growing our workforces that are actually representing the communities that we're serving.
Totally. And to go back to your original point that, the project might get delivered faster, but not with the commercial benefits of getting delivered right. And I think that's the main difference here, right? And it could take longer, but it's a better product at the end of the day, which commercially is what we're all looking for.
Yeah, totally.